Yeah. 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 So many lies that you hear from the net, they don't get her respect. She reporting the truth, not a check. You want an unbiased opinion straight from the chest, not a bit accomplice or someone here for a check. Tune in, these are thoughts from a lawyer on a mission who goes so hard it's like she works on commission. Trolls in the comments might say she tripping cause they lack the knowledge, they don't know they missing. Got a couple current events that you like, wanna know about law from the eyes. Tired of all these blogs running lies because their agendas are disguised. Tune in to the intellect, cause I'm sure y'all missing all the facts of the case that she steady is gifting. Someone here for the people, man, it's so uplifting. If you ain't subscribed yet, then you just omitting facts.
You's a clown, that's what you. Why don't you call me a cardboard bishop now? You tough? Call me a cardboard bishop now.
He's not gonna call you that.
Huh? Look on Facebook Live. Call me a cardboard bishop now. You clown. That's what you are. You clown. That's what you are. Why don't you say what you say on Facebook Live, sucker?
No.
Hello, everyone. Happy Wednesday. My name is Pam Esquire, also known as Your Law Intellect, and who you just witnessed was Bishop Lamor Whitehead, who has a church called Leaders of Tomorrow over there in Brooklyn. Well, we are here to talk about the response that Lamor Whitehead has provided to the court. Just to give a quick recap, and I want you guys to go to the other video that I did last week regarding Whitehead, and you guys will see that yeah, it's a lot that's been going on. We have covered Whitehead over here for the last year and a half, maybe 2 years. I don't know. Towards the beginning of this broadcast over here on YouTube, I've been talking about him. But he was convicted back in March of 5 various counts: extortion, attempted extortion, or wire fraud. And I don't want to get the counts messed up because I don't have them by heart, but he was convicted of 5 counts. And since that time, Whitehead has been talking. He started a podcast called Not Guilty. He's been on Dr. Jamal Bryant's podcast, and he wants the world to know, all of us that have absolutely no say in his case, that he didn't do anything. Well, his talking has caused some concern for the judge in this case, and we just talked about that in the previous video, of which there was an email of a person. I don't know who they are because they weren't a part of the case. So I don't know. For all I know, it could have been one of y'all in this chat right now that sent a letter to the judge and told the judge about how they felt Whitehead was acting since this conviction. And they alleged that there was some harassing and threatening activities that were going on, or behavior. And so the judge said, well, I'm really concerned about that. So I'm going to need you to respond to this email that I received. Even though this person is not a party to the case, I am going to need you to respond to this. And then I want the government to respond to this. And the government said, oh, one more thing, Judge. Just one more thing. Whitehead had some documents that were under protective order and were later placed under seal. Those were not supposed to be divulged to the public. However, on the podcast, he is waving papers around saying, I got exclusive information, and I am going to offer you guys this exclusive information that nobody has heard, not even the jury. And so the government said that's a violation. And so the judge said, you know what? That's a problem. That is a problem. And I am going to move the scheduled hearing for a week because the government is trying to get Whitehead to be remanded into jail, which is basically go right now. Do not wait until the sentencing date. Don't wait until sometime after the sentencing date. We feel like his behavior, based on how he's acted, that he should go to jail right now. And so the court said, I'd like to hear more on that. I want to hear more on that. So, Whitehead, I'm going to need you to respond to this allegation by the government by the 7th of May. And I want you all to come in so we can discuss these matters that are now on the table. We need to discuss them on May 13th, which is next Monday. Well, on Monday, Whitehead responded to the first email incident about the alleged harassment and threatening allegations that were made by this unknown person. And then on yesterday, really, really late, like 10 o'clock, because see, in federal court, you have till 11:59 in order to file, your responses to be considered the same day. When a lot of state courts, you have to file by the time court is like the court date is up or the court closes. So if they close at 5, you have till 5 o'clock. But federal court has always made it where you can file 11:59. So I was just sitting there waiting because I didn't really, I wasn't really taught. The first one, now if the Andersons come forward, like I said, and they say this stuff happened, and it might be some, we might be cooking with grease. But just, people on the internet, we know a lot of you guys have a lot to say. Some of you guys don't like the man. So, for all we know, it could have been anybody. So I wasn't really on that one. But that protective order and those documents, I definitely wanted to see the response. So I did post that if you guys are in the membership, there are perks. When I get documents, whether it's 10 o'clock in the morning or 10 o'clock at night, I post them so you guys can read them for yourself. And I know many of you guys wanted me to go live about it last night, but it was just one of those days, so it wasn't going to happen. But I am here before you now to go over the response of Whitehead. So what I want you guys to do, if you guys appreciate me talking about Whitehead, which I said I wasn't going to do too much more of, please hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already, if you like it over here. And we greatly appreciate that. Two Sun One, you said you need to become a member. You guys hit the link. I have the membership in the description box. So if one of the mods could put it in there, that would be great. And Lady Joyce MD said, I can't stand him. I can't stand him. And this is what he would say to you, because he argues with people back and forth in the chat. So if you talk bad about him, this is what he would do. First, he would probably talk about your mama. He would look on your, your Instagrams and your Facebooks and look at your pictures and try to clown you on something or whatnot. And then he'll probably...
You's a clown. That's what you... Why don't you call me a cardboard bishop now? Huh? You tough? Call me a cardboard bishop now.
He's not gonna call you that.
Huh? Look on Facebook Live. Call me a cardboard bishop now. You clown. That's what you are. You clown. That's what you are. Why don't you say what you say on Facebook Live, sucker?
No.
And for those of you that have been asking, just a little side note, around 7:30ish when we finish this, we are going to have our hood court training. For those of you that don't know, I do have a second channel, and it's the Law Offices of Hood and Ghetto. And please just don't take it all super serious, because I got people, that's just not... I like the intellectual Pam. If you like the intellectual Pam and want to hear about the law, then you stay right on over here on this platform, because over there we just have a little fun. I'm not Pam Esquire over there. It's just a kick it channel. Okay. So I'm just going to warn you, and I warn you again at the end, because I am going to morph the chat over there when we're finished. Okay. But people have wanted to continue with our Law Offices of Hood and Ghetto. It is just so good. I can't believe you guys like that, but yes, H&G will be in session. We have some good training materials. We have some more. We have a lot of new staff over there at Law Offices of Hood and Ghetto. It's been a lot of storms, so the internet has been a little shaky. So we might have to stick our ear out the window in order to talk on the phone when our people that are inmates call us. But we'll deal with that when we get over there. Okay. All right. Thank you, Shay Bay, for becoming a member. I appreciate you. That is so kind of you. Wanda, I thank you so much for the super sticker. This is true. Thank you for becoming not with the Nesto picture. Thank you for becoming an intellect. I appreciate that. I'm looking at the picture like, why do he look so familiar? I'm like, why does this guy look so familiar? Oh my God. I can't with you guys. But let's get to the business at hand for those of you guys that give 2 cents about this guy, Whitehead. So, as I said before, Whitehead was ordered to respond to what the government had to say. And so on the 6th, Whitehead responded in this manner. He said, as you see in the caption, Mr. Whitehead's statement regarding the court and the government are protected speech and not a violation of any condition of release. The email related to Mr. Whitehead's podcast contains 2 parts. The first of which is addressed here. Mr. Whitehead's statement regarding his innocence, the government, the court, and allegations that he was in sum and substance, quote, set up, are protected speech. The Supreme Court, citing to Mills v. Alabama, stated that, quote, whatever differences may exist about interpretations of the First Amendment, there is practically universal agreement that a major purpose of that amendment was to protect the free discussion of governmental affairs. Further, the court cites to Shepard v. Maxwell in stating that a responsible press has always been regarded as the handmaiden of effective judicial administration. The press does not simply publish information about trials, but guards against the miscarriage of justice by subjecting the police, prosecutors, and judicial processes to extensive public scrutiny and criticism. So he's basically equating his podcast, I guess, to being the press, And he says that, we need to know the miscarriages of justice that has occurred in this case, and that we wouldn't know what's going on unless people like him, who has his podcast and his platform, explains to us what is going on behind the scene. I think it's very interesting that freedom of speech is used, because when people were using their freedom of speech with Whitehead, he sued some people. Okay. Larry Reed got sued. Miss Jones got sued. Jives got sued. Tasha K got sued. Yeah. All of those got sued for defamation. Sure did. But it's interesting that freedom of speech is, what we go to. But let's go on. Mr. Whitehead has a right to criticize the prosecution against him, including criticism of the prosecutor, government agents, and the court and judicial process. Mr. Whitehead did not make any statements on the podcast or press tour of which defense counsel was aware that could fairly be read as inciting some kind of harassment or other similar action against these individual prosecutors, the court individually, or any member of the court staff. Mr. Whitehead pled not guilty and was convicted, and he has maintained his innocence. It is well within the bounds of the First Amendment for Mr. Whitehead to maintain his innocence, state that he was wrongfully convicted, and to make criticisms of the government and court. None of this violates the conditions of Mr. Whitehead's release or serves as a basis to change the conditions of his release. What I will say is the prosecutor did acknowledge that Whitehead does have the right to freedom of speech and to maintain his innocence. So I guess that kind of reiterates what the government said already. Part 2, Mr. Whitehead has not incited any kind of harassment or threats against Rashid or Pauline Anderson. The second portion of the email relates to allegations that members of the public have made threats against the Andersons. Mr. Whitehead has not asked anyone to attack, contact, harass, or threaten the Andersons. Nor is defense counsel aware of any statements within the podcast or press tour that can be fairly interpreted as doing so. Lamor Whitehead disclaims any such attacks, contacts, harassment, and threats in the strongest possible terms. Lamor Whitehead cannot be fairly held accountable for the actions of an individual who watched a podcast or press or heard about the case. Mr. Whitehead has not made any statements that defense counsel is aware of that can be fairly interpreted as inciting or instructing individuals to do so. The government mentions that on an episode of the quote Jamal Bryant podcast, Let's Be Clear, Mr. Whitehead criticized Mr. Anderson as quote disgruntled former member and stated that the quote FBI didn't have nothing on me. And what they had to do was make it look like a scheme. So this is why they needed Pauline Anderson. And then he cites where you can find that over at Pastor Bryant's podcast. This statement cannot be fairly read as intending to threaten or intimidate witnesses. The idea that Rashid Anderson was a disgruntled former member of the ministry was adduced at trial. During closing arguments, defense counsel stated in sum and substance that the reason the Andersons had requested the money back when they did was because of the breakdown in the relationship between Rashid Anderson and Lamor Whitehead, rather than because there was any fraud. These statements are in line with those elements of the defense case. There is nothing in the email or the government submission which indicates any kind of threat expressed or implied. Despite the fact that Mr. Whitehead has nothing to do with these threats in any future statements, Mr. Whitehead will take care to clarify that nobody should contact, attack, threaten, harass, or in any way bother either Pauline or Rashid Anderson. So basically, he's saying that even though he has not instructed anyone to do so or threaten or harass or anything of that nature, and he hasn't told anyone else to do so, he will make sure that he does a disclaimer when he goes live and says, you guys, I might be dragging Rashid in them. However, please do not threaten and harass and attack them. Do not leave those Andersons alone. So that's what he's saying, that he will put a disclaimer out there. Okay. It should also be noted that Rashid Anderson has made public statements about this case. For example, on March 13th, 2024, a YouTube account called Rod and J, which purports to belong to Rashid Anderson, posted a video titled Bishop Lamor Whitehead Guilty, Victim Rashid Anderson's Statement Back at Church After 4 Years, which depicts an interview that Rashid Anderson conducted with News 12. It appears that this video is originally from a TikTok video from an account named at Rashid the Realtor, which also purports to belong to Rashid Anderson. On March 12, 2024, NBC News ran a piece on the trial that interviewed Rashid Anderson as well. Absent any statements from Lamor Whitehead seeming to incite harassment or threat, it cannot be determined that Mr. Whitehead's podcast or press, as opposed to the public statements of Mr. Anderson, are the source of these regrettable threats. So basically, it sounds like they're saying that because Rashid, let me look up what Rashid had to say in his interview, because I don't remember him saying much. Let me see. Rashid Anderson. Basically saying that he's talked to himself, and how do we not know that but for, let me see, victims of Lamor Whitehead speak out after his conviction. Let me see. Let me see here. She's basically saying that how do we not know that it wasn't Rashid Anderson's statements that he made is the reason why it didn't just pop up. But I know what he's talking about from the news. Let me see. This goes on. I don't see it. Anyway, you guys with me? Thank you guys so much. I see the gifting. I appreciate that. Um, Terry, thank you so much. That is so kind of you. There are 10 new intellects because of you, and for that, I am so grateful. The nurse, thank you for becoming an intellect. And Frandrew and Crawfy said, thanks for all you do, Pammy Pam. Thank you so much for the super chat. Phyllis, thank you for the super sticker. How kind of you. I am unique said, I think Whitehead and Nesto are brothers. My. Let's go on. Let's see what else is on here. Okay. You guys get what he was saying, that the regrettable threat. So then he goes on. It should also be noted that it is more likely that Mr. Anderson's interview was the basis of this than the podcast. As of 6 p.m. on May 6th, the YouTube video for Mr. Whitehead's podcast was approximately 9,940 views. You're welcome. New York Interconnect claims that News 12 and New York One combined reach more than 1.29 million people weekly. And NBC News is a broadcast news service whose YouTube channel has 9.96 million subscribers. This is significantly more than have watched Mr. Whitehead's podcast. Absent any evidence that Mr. Whitehead made a specific statement or statements which are intended to incite threats against Pauline and Rashid Anderson, it is not appropriate to alter his release status on this basis. Now, what I will say is, I think it would be a game changer and a bit different if Rashid and Miss Anderson or his mom actually does come forward. I wasn't feeling the whole third party just randomly, because again, that person could be in this chat right now. You know? Somebody said, Whitehead, take off the designer clothes and the jewelry. Time for the orange jumpsuit. That wasn't nice, Miss Lowe. My. Lab Joyce MD said that's weak. That's what his argument was. I mean, I'm just reporting. Okay, I gotta find this Rashid Anderson thingy. Because I don't remember him saying much. To say that he kind of caused this on his own. Rashid Anderson on Lamor Whitehead. Let me go. Okay, here's News 12. Life-changing scam. What? This is him talking. This is Whitehead talking. Okay, let me look it up one more time. Let's see. Let me see. Rashid Anderson. Okay, this is News 12. So let me see here. We want to make sure we give full context to what they're talking about here. Okay, let's see.
Renowned Bishop Lamor Whitehead are breaking their silence tonight here on News 12. This comes just one day after the flashy bishop was found guilty on multiple charges, including wire fraud and lying to the FBI. News 12's Caitlin Ulrich spoke with one of the families affected by the bishop's actions.
Yes, Rashid.
I was on federal trial, and I was found guilty yesterday.
Brooklyn Bishop Lamor Whitehead was found guilty of lying to the FBI, attempted extortion, and wire fraud. And today, he says it's the FBI's fault.
And just because I was not going to be a federal informant against the mayor of New York, the FBI said they was going to make my life a living hell. And that's what you guys are seeing. I stand on my innocence, right? Innocent.
of all charges.
The bishop's wire fraud victim, Pauline Anderson, would beg to differ. She's still without the nearly $100,000 that she wired to him. And today, in his only television interview, Anderson's son speaks to us outside of the very Canarsie church where he first met Whitehead.
Yeah, just because this is pretty much where everything happened. It's like everything coming all back at once, you know, in 4 years of memories.
Rashid Anderson met Whitehead in 2020. The preacher even called Anderson his, quote, spiritual son.
You know, he would tell me he loves me all the time and, you know, he's proud of me, all those stuff, like a father figure.
Whitehead helped Rashid buy a home, and he thought he could help his mom, too. Pauline then wired Whitehead about $90,000 and is now in the midst of civil litigation for the $85,000 she never got back.
I need y'all to understand that this trial was just another round in the fight. That's all it was. Another round in the fight.
For the Anderson family, this trial is just one of maybe many victories.
Why did you guys feel it was important to speak publicly now?
Because the truth came out. We didn't want to wrestle with the lies and everything that were being told. We wanted the truth to come out in order to break our silence.
In Canarsie, 4 News 12, I'm Caitlin Ulrich.
That's it.
Now today, Mayor Eric Adams was asked when he last spoke with Whitehead, and he said that he could not recall.
Now that might have been the truth because, listen, I was at that trial and they didn't talk that much. Okay. So there's that. That's what Rashid, that's the channel. That was channel 12. So I'm not sure what he would have said that would have promoted. Okay, that was channel 12. NBC News. No, it say Interconnect claims that News 12 combined reached more than 1.29 million in NBC News. Okay, let's see what happened on NBC News. Rashid Anderson. Let's see. Let's see. Let's see here. Okay, wait. Let's see if we got a hit here.
The so-called bling bishop is also poised to lose his freedom. Lamor Whitehead facing decades in prison after a jury convicted him today on federal charges, including wire fraud and attempted extortion. Prosecutors say he ripped off a parishioner's retirement savings, and tonight her family is speaking for the first time to News 4's Chris Jose.
It's been an emotional roller coaster for the past 4 years.
Rashid Anderson relieved tonight following the conviction of Lamor Whitehead, better known as the Bling Bishop, for his lavish lifestyle. A Manhattan federal jury today finding Whitehead guilty of defrauding a parishioner and trying to extort a businessman.
It's been a long time coming, and we're very happy to see that the verdict was guilty today.
Rashid's mother, Pauline Anderson, invested $90,000 of her retirement savings with Whitehead. Prosecutors said he spent the money on luxury goods at Louis Vuitton and Foot Locker, and even used Anderson's money to make his car payments. Rashid testified during the trial. You and your mother trusted this guy.
Yeah, we trusted him a lot.
Whitehead, no stranger to headlines. In July of 2022, he was robbed at gunpoint while delivering a sermon in Brooklyn. The $1 million jewelry heist caught on his church's live stream. 2 months ago, one of the men accused of the robbery killed by U.S. Marshals at a New Jersey hotel.
This was the guy that put the gun, have a gun pointed just like this in my wife's face, pointed just like this in my 8-month-old baby's face, and then had the gun to the back of my head as he ripped off my jewelry.
Whitehead not yet publicly commenting on his conviction, which also includes charges that he tried to force a Bronx businessman to lend him $500,000 while promising access to Mayor Adams. Whitehead claimed he knows the mayor on a personal level. The bishop going to social media after his arrest in December 2022.
Just because you was arrested doesn't make you guilty.
Jurors found Whitehead guilty of wire fraud, lying to the FBI, and attempted extortion. The trial lasting 2 weeks. Rashid had prayed for today's outcome.
I do want to give thanks to God because he was the one that, revealed the truth, and I was able to go up there. Everyone was able to go up there and speak their truth.
Whitehead's sentencing is scheduled for July 1st. He faces up to 45 years in prison. Chris Jose, News 4 New York.
Well, okay, that's it. Those were the statements he made. I saw that second one. I didn't see the first one. So that was it. So that's what they're saying. He could have exposed himself to the threats and all of that because he talked. If he was getting threats, I don't know. So anyway, we're going to go to part 2, which is about this was a little bit longer. This was when the government was asking that Whitehead be remanded because he revealed documents, according to them, that were under seal or protective order. So it has the first heading says Mr. Whitehead should not be remanded. Let me get on my news voice. As an initial matter, the government claims in its submission that the documents displayed are USAO 00009914 and USA 0000009919, marked with an APO designation. Those documents were reproduced with a seal designation, not APO, in the 3600 series, specifically 3604-001 and 3604-005. It is not immediately apparent, based upon the screenshots or review of the podcast, which versions are displayed. However, it is important to note that these materials were reproduced as non-APO material. The statement that, quote, the jury could not get this at all, you guys could not get this at all, this is exclusive paperwork, end quote, is a reference to this paperwork having not been presented to the jury. The statement regarding posting that paperwork on Patreon was intended to reference non-sealed material. So he wasn't going to put any of the sealed material on Patreon. He was going to put the non-sealed material on Patreon. This is supported by Mr. Whitehead's statement that, quote, and this paperwork is going to be the reason why this case will be reversed and overturned, right? And you guys have been destroying my life because the jury was not able to see this paperwork, end quote. This discussion is tied to Mr. Whitehead's contention that if certain evidence had been presented to the jury, the outcome would have been different, similar to arguments raised in the Rule 33 motion. And United States versus Cudler, which is a 58 Federal 3rd 825, which is a Second Circuit case of 1995, citing to United States v. Chalmers Industry, Inc., which is a Second Circuit 1983 case, it states that, quote, a defendant cannot be held in contempt absent a definite and specific order of which he had notice. The order at docket 24 states in relevant part that, quote, the defense shall not post any disclosure material on any internet site or network site, including any social media sites such as Facebook or Twitter, to which persons other than the parties hereto have access, and shall not disclose any disclosure material to the media, end quote. This statement could potentially be read as not allowing the posting of that material as opposed to barring discussions of that material. This is additionally a reasonable misunderstanding of the order in light of the fact that the disclosure material includes, at least in relevant part, material that affects the privacy, confidentiality, and business interests of individuals and entities. I would impede if prematurely disclosed. the government's ongoing investigation of uncharged individuals, and triple I would risk prejudicial pretrial publicity if publicly disseminated. Mr. Whitehead did not reveal or attempt to reveal or display any material that would relate to the privacy of any individual, such as contact information. Mr. Whitehead did not reveal anything that would, quote, impede an investigation. Mr. Whitehead did not reveal anything which would risk prejudicial pretrial publicity if publicly disseminated. In addition, the discussion related to Brandon Belmonte, by and large, referenced matters which have been the subject of significant and detailed motions available on the public docket, as well as matters that have been publicly discussed by Brandon Belmonte. Brandon Belmonte has given interviews about this case, including a July 25th, 2023 interview on Power 105.1, where Mr. Belmonte stated that, quote, Lamor Whitehead called Eric Adams right in front of me. Eric Adams did not pick up the call in any of the conversations ever, end quote. These matters were further discussed by Mr. Belmonte in the New Yorker article, quote, how Eric Adams started mentoring a con man. That was by Eric Latch, published January 13th of 2023. The fact that these statements have been discussed publicly by Mr. Belmonte limits any kind of impact on any investigation or prejudicial publicity. Mr. Belmonte has publicly disclosed his role in the investigation and spoken at length about this conduct, making much of this information public. It does not appear that any information which was disseminated had not already been discussed publicly by Mr. Belmonte, both within the New Yorker article and Power 105.1 interview. Mr. Whitehead has been specifically cautioned that even the discussion of such material can be considered violative of the court order and will not do so. So the attorneys had told him, I guess they cautioned him that it wouldn't be a good idea to discuss it. So this is the interview. I mentioned it on the last video. That's why I think it's interesting that they're mentioning this interview. Brandon Belmonte did do an interview, and I told you guys because I've given both sides, regardless to what he says, I have given both sides. And I talked about Brandon Belmonte in this interview. And this is why I came to the conclusion that I came to when I said that Brandon Belmonte has acknowledged that it appears based on what he said, if we are to believe Belmonte, this did all start because Belmonte claimed, let's just listen to it. This is the Power 105.1 interview. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but you can go over there and get them a couple of numbers, couple of views and likes and clicks. But this is the part why I came to my conclusion that it's obvious Belmonte has said how all of this stuff started, how it started rolling. Now, what they found once they got the ball rolling and after their eyes were on him is something told, like they found what they found. But how it started, nobody is arguing what made you an important person to them to look at.
So I'm like, I don't know who the fuck this guy thinks he is. So one night, it was a Friday night, it was around Greek Orthodox Easter weekend. My fiance is in Ohio. I'm on the phone with one of my boys who used to work at the U.S. Attorney's Office in Manhattan, and I'm telling him the story. I go, bro, I said, I think Eric Adams is trying to extort me through this guy, because he kept saying to try for me to introduce my best friend as a legit billionaire, real estate developer. He's a Hasidic Jew. He's a legit billionaire, like legit. Mm-hmm. He kept saying, introduce me to him. I got City Hall in my back pocket. Eric Adams, when he was Borough Hall president, was going to give me a $60 million construction contract. I didn't have a construction business. E will do anything for me. So I call my boy. I go, this guy wants $5,000 and basically he's going to leave me alone, but he keeps talking about City Hall do things for me with my building. They'll give me benefits, right? I could get you this. I could get you that. E, it's my time to shine. It's my time.
So anyway, you guys get the picture. Belmonte, this is the guy, Belmonte, for those of you guys that haven't seen him. And Belmonte is currently indicted in the Eastern District of New York for some allegations against him that has nothing to do with Whitehead, but he was not indicted at the time that he did call and I guess tell him, I think that the mayor is trying to use this guy to extort me. Again, none of the information that has come forward even makes sense that Belmonte came to that conclusion. But I guess justice happens how justice happens. I don't know. But it honestly, that is one thing I would have to agree with, is that it was clear that it didn't make sense. None of the information I heard at trial even remotely would even connect Eric Adams as trying to extort you out of money or extort you whatever way you're trying to say that it was. It didn't make any sense. So that's where I got that straight from Belmonte's mouth, that he said that. So that's why I came up with the conclusion that I came up with. So it's very interesting that popped up in the pleading, but said Belmonte is like, that is true. Phyllis Carter said he can say whatever, but the government has the video from his podcast flashing protective docs. Sometimes a player can't play a player. I mean, ain't nobody never beat the streets. That's all I'm saying. So Belmonte, when I started looking a little bit into his case, and I looked at what was turned over by the government to Belmonte, he has a few interviews going way back where he has talked to the government. So he's not, I don't think Whitehead is far off, or when he does say that Belmonte seems as if he's been working with the government for some years or whatnot. But that's just based on the information that I have. But let's proceed. But Belmonte hasn't done any interviews since then that I know of. He has not been talking. After that situation occurred where he went on, I think his attorney told him don't say nothing else about this case at all, and I don't think he has. Because what Whitehead did after this interview is he sued Belmonte for defamation. He never served him, but he did file a lawsuit. That was when he was, you get a lawsuit, you get a lawsuit, you get a lawsuit, you get a lawsuit, but he did filed a lawsuit for defamation and was trying to get a declaratory judgment at one point, trying to get them to acknowledge in civil court that he didn't do all this stuff. Or it was interesting, very interesting. Let's go on. Let me see. Make sure I got the right one here. Okay. Let's go on here. The context of Mr. Whitehead's statement matters as well. Mr. Whitehead has claimed, consistent with Mr. Belmonte's statement to the New Yorker, that this was about Eric Adams. Specifically in the Latch article, Belmonte is quoted as saying, quote, I said, I think the mayor of New York is on the take. And he said, what do you mean? And I said, the mayor of New York City is trying to extort me through someone else, end quote. This is highlighted to show how the language regarding exclusivity and what the jury did not see are related to Mr. Whitehead's contention, which was alluded to in his testimony but cannot be fully developed. But this all has to do with Eric Adams. Huh? So this is the problem. Discussing something public such as what Belmonte said, to quote, why not just quote this video and say, all along Belmonte has said you can check out this video. He admitted that he contacted the government and said that this man is trying to extort me for Eric Adams. Why not quote the video? Why not quote the article? why would you use documents that have bait stamps on it, allegedly, that say sealed, unsealed, whatever it was, in order to prove your point? That would be the issue for me. But I'm just thinking out loud. Like, to say, well, this information was already public. Was it? Was all of the information already public already that was said? I didn't watch it. Some of you guys probably have. But was all of this information already public? Is that an accurate statement? I don't know. And then to say I'm going to take some paperwork and put it in Patreon, but then say, but what I'm putting in Patreon, I was really meaning, I didn't say it, but I'm not going to put the exclusive documents or the documents that are in the protective order. I'm going to put the non. We can get all the public documents on Pacer. Like for 10 cents a page. Like, why would you go to somebody's Patreon to get public documents on Pacer? We've had 2 bloggers. I didn't do it, but they went, because I sat in trial. So I don't want the transcripts. But you've had bloggers that have ordered the transcripts. So that's already information that's out there. People want to know what's in the transcript. So why in your Patreon, just using logic, would you put stuff in there and charge people for it that we can already get for 10 cents a page or whatever on Pacer or on, what is it? Legal something, other place you can look it up, federal documents. I'm just thinking out loud, though. You know, you guys come up with your own conclusions and opinions. It just, okay. Let's go on. And then he has the links. They have the links to where you can find the article and the YouTube link of Belmonte. On the whole, Mr. Whitehead's statements have been indicative of frustrations with the judicial process and the way the trial unfolded. They have been related to his protestations that he was innocent and that the outcry would have been different if Mr. Belmonte had testified. This is consistent with arguments made by the defense. There is nothing in these statements that indicates any intention to flout the order, and since the government's filing, Mr. Whitehead has not made additional public statements or released additional episodes of the podcast, indicating his intention to comply with the court's orders. While the government's filing makes mentions of Mr. Whitehead's supposed, quote, willingness to casually commit additional crimes as part of his media tour, end quote, however, there does not appear to be a specific allegation that Mr. Whitehead violated any order or committed, quote, additional crimes, end quote, aside from those specifically enumerated in the government's motion. So basically, since the government has filed this motion, you guys go over there to Instagram. You're not going to see any new episodes, is what they're saying. You may see some pictures of some Fendi and some Gucci suits or something, but you are not. You may see Sunday service and you may see a little worship, but you will not see any more new episodes since the government's filing. Let's go on. The government mentions 18 USC sections 1512 sub D, prohibiting harassment of a person to persuade them not to assist in a prosecution. However, there is not evidence of this. United States v. Wilson, and that's over at the Fourth Circuit, a 1986 case, held that, quote, defining harass or as conduct that would badger, disturb, or pester was in accordance with the common meaning of the word and was appropriate. Under this definition, there is not evidence that Mr. Whitehead sought to intentionally harass a person to hinder, delay, prevent, or dissuade anyone from attending or testifying in an official proceeding. And Wilson, the conduct in question involved the defendant whispering things like, quote, your ass belongs to Joe, end quote, to witnesses while sneering. This is a far cry from the conduct alleged here. of Mr. Whitehead, stating on the Bryant podcast at 40 minutes to 42 minutes and 30 seconds that, quote, the FBI didn't have nothing on me and that they had to do was make it look like a scheme. So this is why they needed Pauline Anderson, end quote. This conduct is not designed to, quote, badger, disturb, or pester anyone in order to dissuade them from testifying. The statute prohibits harassing an individual, not making a public statement about them. A defendant can discuss the public testimony against them without it constituting harassment. While there are surely many edge cases that could go either way, the quoted statement is clearly not harassment. There is nothing within that statement which could be fairly interpreted as inciting a person to attack, harass, threaten, badger, disturb, or pester any witnesses. The government further mentions 18 U.S.C. sections 1513 sub E, prohibiting witness retaliation by, quote, taking any action harmful to a witness. There is likewise not support for this contention. Mr. Whitehead has not knowingly taken an action harmful to any witness with intent to retaliate against them for their testimony. Again, the evidence here is lacking. There is nothing in the statements quoted that would seem to indicate that Mr. Whitehead took an action harmful to a person. He did not tell anyone to threaten Pauline Anderson, harass her, or contact her in any way, let alone that it was undertaken with intention to retaliate against her for her testimony. Mr. Whitehead has a right to criticize the prosecution against him, and it is absolutely possible to do so without taking an action harmful to a witness with intent to retaliate. Again, there are certain edge cases that could go either way, but counsel does not see anything in the quoted statement that even approached the conduct prohibited by the statute. So they basically said he's not, he didn't minute saying that was done. But just in case the court finds that he did do something wrong, this is what he says. Were the court to find that Mr. Whitehead had violated the order willfully, or that any of his conduct constituted harassment or taking harmful action against a witness, there are conditions short of detention which would be appropriate, even if the rebuttable presumption alleged by the government does apply. Mr. Whitehead has been released since December of 2022, approximately 18 months at this point, and has not run afoul of the court's orders or rules. Counsel does not even specifically recall an instance where Mr. Whitehead had to be reminded of any order or cautioned by the court that his conduct ran up against the court's orders. And see, I'm going to put a pin right there for a minute. This is why when the people were inboxing me, DMing me, or emailing me, making allegations, why I said, you telling me doesn't, like, what you want me to do about it? If you are not, like, people want to make all these allegations against someone, but then you don't go to the proper people that can do something if he did do something. I'm not saying either way, but if he did do something to you, like you're alleging, like I guess it was a family member alleging things, and then you want to say, well, I'm going to let God handle it. Well, now it looks like this is a model citizen who really doesn't do anything wrong, right? So the court is going to rely on that he doesn't have anyone saying that he's harassed him. He doesn't have anyone saying that he threatened him. He doesn't have anyone saying that he's done anything adverse to those orders. To me, this is Pam's opinion. I was looking at that whole filing lawsuits against all the victims. It was just crazy to me. I don't know how that wasn't considered as anything, but that's just me. Did the government know? Yes, they did, because they brought it up in trial where they talked about it, and they also mentioned it in one of the motions. So if people want to sit back, this is family, friends, or whatever, I'm not there. I don't know the man. Every time I've seen him, he's not said one mumbling word to me. Yes, he does get people that both times I was in court, they've came up there or whatever. But baby, I am from the D. It takes a whole lot than you having somebody's presence there to be like, oh, let me leave, let me go. That's not going to happen. Second, I ain't never nowhere by myself. That's the second thing. But nevertheless, he ain't never said nothing to me. But apparently they making it like he just running a whole muck and been running amok, but y'all didn't do anything about it. And then you want me to get on here. Then he attacking me on what you said. I'm not doing that. I'm not taking nan punch for this, because of what you alleging. If there was an issue, go ahead and do something about your issue. I just really have an issue with that. Literally, people have given me their explanations to why they don't say anything. I will get DMs all through the day. Everything that happened about him, there are people that are following this case that are close to him or know him that are following this case to the T. Every little thing that happens, they probably, as soon as it get filed, they might get notifications. Child, I don't know. But then they email it to me because they want me to talk about it. But you saying he allegedly did this stuff to you, why ain't you doing something about it? Like, I can't help you. I'm not going to sit out there on some hearsay within hearsay. Documents is different. Again, the allegations, right now he's convicted. So it kind of is what it is. A jury of his peers said you did what they said you did. But as far as just going out here because you telling me he did this, he did that, he did this, he did that, like, but again, in front of it looks like he's done nothing since he's been. You're saying all of this, but it looks like he's done absolutely nothing since he's been out on bond. That's what it looked like to me. And that's what it's going to look like to the court. So anyway, that's all I'm saying. I done seen some things. I don't profess to be the baddest, you know what I'm saying? Because the streets ain't never lost. But I'm just saying, I've seen some things. It take a lot more than that for me to run and be like, "Ooh, I'm not coming back. I'm scared." Like, no. Jocelyn, don't lose your job over here you can watch the replay. Don't get yourself in trouble. We not nationwide yet. Now, hood and ghetto, we trying to get worldwide right now. That might end up taking off. Then maybe you can come work for all offices of hood and ghetto, and then maybe one day we'll get people salaries. You know what I'm saying? But right now, you need to keep your job because we can't help you. And I'm not gonna fake the funk. I don't walk around here acting like I got quadrillions of dollars. They do. Open doors, opportunity, said people act like they do. And listen, that's not my experience. So because of that, maybe that is y'all experience and he got y'all up here scared because and then some people say because he allegedly got the backing with NYPD and the mayor. Now, again, what did they say in the newscast? They said, we asked Mayor Adams when was the last time he talked to Whitehead. He said he don't even remember. That coincides with the court, with the text messages. He stopped talking to him a few years ago. I think he stopped talking to him before, according to the text messages, unless it's some other some other phone someplace else. It looks like he stopped talking to him even before. It was definitely before he was arrested. I think it was before the robbery. So he was still obviously throwing his name out there. And one thing I can say with Mayor Adams is he never, when people were asking about, why are you affiliating yourself with him? One thing Adams did do is he never threw Whitehead under the bus. He never said, I don't talk to that joker. He was like, I mentored him. He just needs a little guidance. He'll say things like that. But when I saw those text messages, he could have been threw him under the bus. Like, I don't even really talk to that cat. I don't know what he's telling you guys, but I haven't talked to him in a while. I've separated myself a long time ago. He never did that. Thought that was very interesting. Yeah, that is true. Maria said EA has his own problems. That is true because they're he got a few things going on. They're getting closer and closer with people around him in his campaign. Bishop B said, but he's number 3 closest to Big E. That's not what those texts say. I'm just going by the evidence. The evidence reflected that Big E hadn't talked to him in a while. That's what the evidence was reflecting. He said, Queen VTV, you said the scammer tried to sell confidential documents on Patreon. That he said he didn't. According to this document, his attorney said that he was not trying to sell confidential documents. There were going to be documents that were already public that he was going to put in Patreon. That's what he said. So this is the part where he says, I said that he said he has never run afoul of the court orders. When the government asked for Mr. Whitehead to be detained pending sentencing, the court found that Mr. Whitehead was not a risk of flight and did not pose any kind of danger to the community, and that he had consistently been in compliance with the court's orders and his conditions of release. You guys hear that? So this is why when you guys DM me, it's no disrespect, but this is why I always say, like, it's nothing I could do. If you're not willing to do what needs to be done and contact the proper people, ain't nothing I can do for you. You just want me to talk about it on YouTube? No, that's not what I do. Because then if he is harassing you and then nobody knows about it, this is what you get right here. He's never done anything to defy an order. He's never done anything because there is no evidence of that. So what you want me to do? Not trying to be mean. I'm just like, what y'all want me to do? You want me to call him and tell him to stop? You think he'll answer my phone call and listen to me? Anybody got his number? I'm calling and tell him to stop messing with these alleged people. Like, what y'all want me to do? Saying. Thank you so much for hitting that like button. I appreciate that. Lady B said they should have waited until he posted his second podcast. Well, I think the email just kind of precipitated. The email kind of, that whoever this person is, that was a non-party to the case, that made these allegations. Now, like I said, if Rashid, we don't know. What if Rashid and Miss Pauline comes forward and they say that? I don't know. But I would agree, just that letter alone, that email is like, okay, what's your authority? Where's your evidence that he's been harassing people? Like, you need evidence of that. You can't just say that. Like, you can't just, I don't know. I think people are really like rooting for those that had the courage to come forward, and they're pushing them and they're following their case and they're living vicariously through them because they didn't have the strength to do it themselves. And again, I don't live around the man. I ain't got to deal with the man. None of that stuff. So I don't know what it's like dealing with him every day or on a consistent basis. So perhaps that's just what they had to do for their sanity. But then you can't get mad when he's still out here in these streets and working these court systems and stuff. Like, you can't get mad about that. You know? Harold said, Miss Pam, you gave him better advice than his own lawyer. You know, honestly, and you guys know I'll say both sides. I'll joke and stuff or whatnot. But on both sides, I always said I believe the Belmonte part was the most shakiest for me. I would approach that totally different. And if you hammer one thing totally different, then perhaps you can place a little bit of doubt on some of the other stuff. But the other stuff, like I said, the documents, I don't know how you get around that. To just say, well, it was somebody else, but you really don't have any evidence that it was somebody else. That wasn't really an argument, you know. But the Belmonte and getting caught up with Belmonte, I would agree that I believe it was because there was a bigger fish, you know, i.e. Big E, you know. Or as he said, I'm cool with E, me and E. That's how Whitehead was in all the text messages. Me and E conversations. Yeah, let me call E. See, that's his assistant right there. That's his right man, his right-hand man. You know, they do everything. You know, they do everything for him. It was always like trying to prove I have this access and connections. So, yeah. So let's see what he goes on to say. He says, even when he has made public statements, those have all stayed within the bounds of the court orders and dictates thus far. An admonishment by the court in the strongest terms would be sufficient. So basically they saying he should just be admonished because he hasn't done anything. He hasn't violated an order. He's made statements before, and he's always stayed within the confines, of the 4 documents of the order. And so he feels like the judge should just strongly tell him, don't do it again. Do not do it again. A strong admonishment is enough. Were any content to be determined by the court to be in violation of any order, Mr. Whitehead will remove any offending content that it is within its power to remove as soon as practicable. Request that any content not within his power to remove be taken down, and refrain from any further public statement, action, or discussion which is even arguably violative. So basically, their suggestion is the court tell him remove any offending content that's within his power. If it's not in his power, i.e., it's in somebody else's podcast, like a Jamal Bryant or something, then to ask them, my mans, can you please just take that down because, the court is not happy with what was said. Can you please remove it? And, obviously he doesn't have to if he doesn't want to because it's his podcast, but he can totally ask and say, can you remove this? And then he will stop any further public statements, actions, or discussion, which is even arguably a violation. And then they go on to say, Mr. Whitehead has taken down the podcast. So it looks like the video has been taken down, but he does have like some shorts on there. But he did take the video down. For those of you that were wondering, make sure you guys hit the like button, please, as you guys come up in here. It's 1,200 of you guys. Please hit that like. That'll be very kind of you guys. So then it has, the defense submits that this would be sufficient to address these issues and that there remain conditions or a combination of conditions short of remand, which are appropriate here. So they think that there are other conditions that can be, that you can give him short of making him go to jail. The defense submits that there is not probable cause to believe the defendant has committed a crime while on release, nor is there clear and convincing evidence that he violated a condition of release. Further, the government has not shown any evidence that there is no condition or combination of conditions that will assure Mr. Whitehead will not flee or pose a danger to the safety of the community, nor that he is unlikely to abide by any condition or combination of conditions of release. Mr. Whitehead has a wife and 4 children and is the pastor of a church. These individuals are dependent on Mr. Whitehead. Mr. Whitehead's family would suffer immense hardship were he to be remanded at this stage. So at this point, what I would do is I would go over there to that Breakfast of Champions because she seemed like she's doing all right. Okay. I think she has more people on her lives than Whitehead has. They just went on some field trip. They go to places together. They sowing seeds and everything over there. She has the daughter with her a lot, so I don't know if that's for babysitting purposes or whatever. That can't be it because she has the baby over there. I think the other kids are in school during the day, so it's not a daycare thing. So yeah, he would need to explain what does he mean by that. That's what I would ask. Like, what exactly do you mean by that? You said she locked down her comments. Oh my. Nikita said, I'm not trying to make you cuss, Nikita. We don't do that over here. We do that at the Ghetto channel. No cussing over here. How is he supporting them? I don't really know because from my understanding, there is a foreclosure set forth in the house for like May 31st or something, unless maybe perhaps he buys it back. I don't know, but there is a foreclosure that is set for the home. So I'm not sure. Your guess is as good as mine. I don't know. want the explanation. That's it. That's what I would say. I'd be like, oh, really? Is that? Oh, okay. All right. That's what he said. Phyllis said his family would be so better off without him, and she has completely dropped his name from her mouth. That's what Phyllis said. I don't know, but listen, I don't know the status of that situation over there. All I know is it looked like she got some nice followers over there that are very grateful with whatever the downloads the Holy Ghost has given her, because they are there every morning for the last I don't know how many years. Frederica, thank you for the Cash App. I appreciate that. That was so kind of you. However long that she's been doing it, she's been over there for how many hundreds of days, because she counts the days and all of that good stuff. And she seems like she's doing okay. But hey. Van C, thank you for the super chat. Said I'm about sick of him and his shenanigans. Lynn's voice said, were the apartment buildings foreclosed on? No, there's supposed to be a final hearing for strict foreclosure because he's been able to postpone it. For those that didn't know, with the Connecticut building, if you guys were following the building with the church, he filed bankruptcy once they won their I think it was in landlord tenant court. They won where he couldn't put them out. And so because of that, he filed bankruptcy for the church in order to pause the order allowing them to go in. So that's where all the shenanigans, you have to go back to that video. It was a whole lot with that whole Glory of God situation. But with the Connecticut building, there was, and this is supposed to be alleged, this was the $500,000 I guess he was asking Belmonte for. He was asking for a loan to fix up that building over there. But that building has been in foreclosure. They spent a lot of money. They do their accounting, but he filed bankruptcy for that building as well. And they paused everything. And then they weren't going to come back until July. I think was like July was the date, but then he was supposed to do all of this stuff because you have to have he put the building's name is in a company. So he did a bankruptcy in the name of the company. I cannot personally file on behalf of my company. You have to have a licensed attorney do that. So the court was telling him when he filed, you have to get an attorney to enter an appearance. And I guess all of the different documents you have to do as it pertains and submit to bankruptcy. Well, he didn't do that, which is similar to kind of like what he did almost in the first case, it looked like, but he did have an attorney. I think Ponder entered in an appearance on that case with Glory God. But apparently they closed it out. Like they dismissed the case because he didn't show up or do what they asked him to do, whatever. And so now the strict foreclosure for the Connecticut apartments are back on. So I believe it's scheduled sometime towards the end of the month or something, of which, yeah. Pam, are we going over new IS charges? No, that's not my intent. I may do it in membership or something, but I wouldn't do that. I'm not going to do that out here. Thank you for being a member, though. I appreciate that. The Golden Child said he told my friend his mom was born a man. He's so demonic and childlike. I can't believe people supported him. He does. He is so petty. He said he was like a jokester in class and all of that. And he's not that type. He's you're ugly. Your mama's ugly. Let me look at your face. Look at you. You got a spot on your nose. You know, he's one of those because he doesn't like what you said, or he blocks a lot of people. He's like block ministry, block you. But yeah, that's somebody's pastor and bishop. Okay, let's see what the ending of this says. Okay. Given the foregoing, the government has not met the burden of showing that the only condition or combination of conditions which can ensure Mr. Whitehead's attendance in court and his compliance with the court orders. So what was very, very interesting was at the end, his attorney actually, I don't put nobody's number here, put a footnote and said, see, for example, people of the state of New York versus Donald Trump. Because this is connected to where where his attorney was saying that there are other ways that he can be punished. Up here where it says counsel does not even specifically recall an instance where Mr. Whitehead had to be reminded of any order or cautioned by the court that his conduct ran up against the court's orders. And they have footnote 4. But look at footnote 4. Footnote 4 says, but see example, people of the state of New York versus Donald Trump, where Mr. Trump has been held in contempt numerous times without remand. Yes, he has compared himself to the former president of the United States of America. While these are different jurisdictions, Mr. Trump has repeatedly flouted court orders and gag orders, which that court has addressed through progressively increasing sanctions. Such an approach is appropriate here, where the court will not need to revisit this issue, as Mr. Whitehead will comply with all orders of the court. So he's saying, he's saying he plans on being good. And so if you just give him a stern warning, tell him what you don't want him to do, he'll comply because he don't want to go to jail. That's what he said. You said he has $9 in the bank and Trump has millions. That's what Harold said. That's what he said. He used Trump as his authority. Trump just got fined like $9,000 the other day. I think they said $1,000 per day or something. Trump was like, that's it? Shoot, I throw away $9,000. Let me keep talking. Because that wasn't like that type of deterrent wasn't going to deter Trump. Like, he's going to talk. He's going to talk anyway. He is the former president of this here United States of America, and he's the Republican front runner. Like, come on. But I get it. I get what he's trying to say. In all fairness, he's trying to say, if y'all gonna let this older white man get chance after chance after chance, you gonna hit me on my first mess up? That's not fair. The scales of justice just aren't weighing right. That's what he said. Let me see if I got my. I don't want to break this thing. Oh, let me see. Hold on. This is what he said. He said, Trump is over here. And he said the scales should be even. Can't even see my little scales. He said the scales should be even. And that would not be fair. If he were punished, then the scales would not be even. That's what he said. Granny said, wait a minute, you guys are moving too fast. Wait a minute. If given another opportunity to be free, Lamar will not follow any direct orders. He'll take it as an opportunity to do just the opposite. I don't know, Granny. He's been kind of quiet lately. This been the quietest that he's been. Huh? I mean, Hip, really, Dennis? That's what we doing? I saw skills like that in my old hood. You know what? You were over there in Brooklyn too, weren't you, Dennis? Huh? You was over there in Brooklyn? These are scales of justice. I don't like what you're implying here. I don't like the implication. You see that? Top woman attorney in Michigan. Y'all see that? Y'all see that? Y'all see this? Super lawyer. Y'all see that? Okay. Just in case you guys didn't know who I was. My name is Pam Esquire, also known as Your Law Intellect. I want you guys to hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already. We are going to head over there to the other channel. The chat will probably automatically move over there. But I got to take a couple of minute break. We'll be on in approximately 5 to 10 minutes. It is pretty hood. In theory, we should probably be late. But that's it on Whitehead for all of you guys that were asking me to go over. He does go to court for the hearing on all of these issues on Monday. I will report what the judge says. And that's that. You said the man ain't gonna do right if they had somebody right beside him to tell him, you see, he doesn't listen to his lawyers, listen to his mothers, his children. He is just off the chain. Harold, do you know him? Harold, do you want to talk about this? Because, you know, if you're a member, we could talk about this in the membership because this sounds like you really know him or something. You know him? What you want to tell me? You okay? I'm just joking here. I'm just playing with you. I just want to make sure you was okay, though. Thank you. Thank you so much, Sari Colette. I love you back. Thank you for giving us a shot over here. Look, he got co-signers and co-counsels and concurrences in the chats. My.
You's a clown. That's what you. Why don't you call me a cardboard bishop now? Huh? You tough? Call me a cardboard bishop now.
He's not gonna call you that.
Huh? Look on Facebook Live. Call me a cardboard bishop now. You clown. That's what you are. You clown. That's what you are. Why don't you say what you say on Facebook Live, sucker?
No.
Y'all meet me over there on the other channel where I believe that Ernest will be, and he ain't calling for real, but y'all know what we do over there. Thank you guys so much for watching. Again, if you guys do not like to joke around, please don't come over there because I really do not want to hear, oh my God, that was just so unprofessional. Why do you act like that? And all of that. I really don't. We just have fun over there. It's just Pam, how I am in real life when I am not fighting for justice, okay, or not going over documents. That's all it is. And the people enjoyed it. So we're just going to have a good time over there. And I hope you guys can join us. If not, it's cool. Have a good night. And I'm sure we'll be back over here with some good legal analysis and education over here at PAMU. But hopefully I'll see you over there on the other channel. I will holler at you guys soon. Gotta go.